everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Erik here with AJ in Grand Ledge, Michigan in the snow, and this is episode 153. How's it going, man?
Man, going well. Rude awakening coming back to this weather, and especially because I know that Michigan's had a little bit of snow before, but we've been hit with a little bit of a snowstorm. I know the west side of the state got completely hammered, up north as well. Flying back.
It's a winter wonderland.
It really is. I mean, it's cool. It's pretty as long as you're inside and it's warm. But yeah, man, we both got lucky with our flights. We were,
I dodged a big time bullet. So I flew from Austin to Detroit via Midway Airport in Chicago. And between O'Hare and Midway on Saturday, I arrived on Monday. And between the two airports, I canceled 1,400 flights.
Yeah. Well, Sunday,
so a lot of people displaced, a lot of mess.
Yeah, we picked the timing perfectly. I got in on Saturday right before the storm hit. My mom, Kathy, she was in Vegas with some friends, and her flight got diverted. They were going on their approach to Detroit, and then the pilot got some information that a plane that
somebody slid off the runway, right?
Yep. So they just circled around and waited, and they got diverted to Cleveland. It sounded like a complete logistical nightmare, and then. She ended up staying the night in Cleveland and then just ended up renting a car because it's just a complete cluster. So her and Linda, who actually Jake, our marketing guy, his mom and my mom are friends, and they're in Vegas. So they just had to rent a car to head back to Michigan.
Sounds familiar. Yeah. All right. So we got lots of news and updates to cover today. Again, show notes are at abroaders.com/153. And let's jump into it with just a couple of announcements. We're not going to get into too much detail, but there will be links in the show notes for a couple of these items. So number one, American Airlines has announced their new reduced mileage awards. And so this is going to be for December through March. And just keep in mind, these are if you have select city issued American Airlines cards. I think there might be a couple of Barclays cards that offer this as well. But you basically get reduced mileage prices for different routes, and it changes which cities are on the list. So we're going to post a link to that. But it's possible to get, domestic trips for as low as $7,500 each way. So definitely worth taking a look if you have American Miles and one of the cards that qualifies. We also have a 100% bonus on both the purchase of Life Miles, Avianca's currency, and also with United. So we're going to share the links to that. Basically, the same type of scenario as we cover pretty often here. It's possible to get pretty cheap business class flights if you otherwise would pay for it. But if you don't have a redemption that you would instead buy a ticket, it's probably not worth taking a look at. So we'll have links to those two offers. And some interesting shakeups with the different frequent flyer programs. You want to talk about Japan Airlines and their new awards with mileage plan with Alaska?
Yeah, so this is really exciting because Alaska is kind of the travel hacking or award mileage enthusiast insiders, kind of dark horse airline where they're not a member of any of the major alliances, but they have a lot of partners. And this is really nice that they just decided to partner with Japan Airlines, who is a big airline in the One World Alliance. People with American Miles or British Airways, Avios have probably flown on Japan Airlines if you're heading to that side of the world. So this is really exciting stuff. A couple of highlights we get is India is considered the same region as Korea and Japan. And that's huge because, man, you and I, we've had some difficulty getting people to India because there's not that much availability. The mileage ask is usually it's more expensive than getting to Korea and Japan. So 60,000 Alaskan miles gets you from, for example, San Francisco to New Delhi, India. So that's pretty cool.
Wow. And the other thing, I think the big biggest thing about Alaska Airlines that's different from the other programs that partner with Japan Airlines is that you get a free stopover on the one-way. So I guess, sort of the breakdown, if you know you want to fly on a flight operated by Japan, if you've just got one-way segments and you're not going to have any stops whatsoever, British Airways is often going to be the best in terms of pricing just because they price per segment, although it's generally a little bit more expensive in business class. So let's say direct flights in economy on Japan Airlines, almost definitely going to be BA. That's your best redemption currency. American Airlines is pretty good as long as you don't have to transit one of the prohibited regions. So like the example you gave of going to India would cost a huge amount more with American. So that's an interesting, sort of advantage here with Alaska. But overall, having a zone-based chart, better pricing, or at least on par with the other major programs, and stopovers allowed on a one-way. Plus, they're a Starwood preferred guest transfer partner. So yeah, this is just good for everybody. I think lots extra options to use mileage plans and potentially have a lot of different opportunities to visit places around Asia.
Yeah, man. Do you think Alaska is going to join any alliance, or do you think they just really like being independent and being able to kind of cherry pick their favorite partners that make sense for them?
I think I really don't know what may hold with this Virgin merger as well. Like, Virgin's also not associated with any alliance. So I don't know how the two airlines combining is going to affect that. But I would say that mergers are a lot of work and a lot of effort to get everything integrated from two totally separate airlines. And so I really wouldn't see much of a shakeup with anything on the Alaska side. And, if you remember when American and U.S. Airways were merging, there was kind of a nice long sabbatical from devaluations because they were so busy with all the other stuff. By the time they finally got the main challenges sorted out with the merger, then there was that big devaluation in March where we had, tons of people redeeming for business class before the prices went up. And so I think we maybe are kind of entering the golden era here for Alaska mileage plan in terms of being able to get value and hopefully, if the merger goes through, which it looks like it was finally approved by the Department of Transportation, hopefully that means that prices and rules and things like that will hold steady. We won't see any devaluations for a little while. So it could be a really good time to be acquiring Alaska miles.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So the next thing, as far as programs go, so Aerlingus has some interesting stuff going on with their award chart. From what I saw, it looks like they're going to be a distance-based chart until they're not. It looks like there's an exception on a couple routes.
Yeah, so I guess like the background here is that Aerlingus is partially owned by the same company that owns British Airways and owns Iberia. So it was, pretty clear that they were going to see some sort of integration with those programs. They were already a partner of British Airways, but interestingly not with Iberia. And so, there were some sort of different rules about what you could use, which airlines you could use the Avios family of currencies. And so it looks like, number one, they are going to further that integration. So they're basically going to become part of the Avios group. So they're going to be joining the same scheme as British Airways and Iberia, which I think is probably a really good thing. And it looks like they're going to adopt that pricing. I think we've already talked in the past about the fact that these guys are also joining One World. So you're going to be able to earn and redeem for Aerlingus flights with lots of different One World currencies at some point in the future. But for now, it's basically the same rules as British Airways and Iberia, with the exception that they've carved out the best redemption across the Atlantic and said that they're not going to give you the normal distance-based chart on Boston to select cities in Europe, including the Boston to Dublin route that traditionally was 25,000 Avios round trip or 12.5 one way. Looks like Aer Lingus is saying that they're going to charge 20 for that instead of 12.5.
Yeah, and that was off the top of my head, the cheapest way to get across the pond, to get from the U.S. to Europe.
Yeah, So it's a little bit disappointing there. However, I think some of the blogs are making this a bigger deal. It depends on when you want to travel, because if you're off peak, you can still get this done for like 26,000 instead of 25,000 round trip. So it depends on the dates, really, whether this is going to have an effect. And the other thing is just, between British Airways and Iberia and now Aer Lingus, I think it's a really good thing that they're all going to be part of the same scheme, even if there's like a carve out for certain routes, because, that was the one that got talked about the most. That was the one that was highly publicized on all these blogs. But, we've got George coming from the UK to meet up with us in Austin in January. And that flight is 16,250 miles. There's a direct flight on British Airways from London Heathrow to Austin, Texas. And I suspect, that there are just other routes like that that are not that expensive, that if you happen to catch off-peak timing, that's a great deal. And even better than that, and this is something that actually more broadly applies for folks that have Amex membership rewards. So right now, Amex has a transfer bonus to Iberia. And that's, I think, just going through the day after the podcast airs. I think the deadline for that is December 15th. And so in this case, instead of transferring 250 Amex membership rewards to get 200 British Airways points, we were able to transfer 250 to get 300 Iberia points, which is, again, the same family of Avios currencies, and that made it only 13,000 Amex to fly George from London to Austin. And I suspect there's lots of other opportunities to do something similar. So if you keep in mind, Iberia points can be used on British Airways, they can be used on American and Iberia, and also Finnair and Air Berlin. So all of those direct routes from the US to Europe are potentially at super low Amex redemption rates if you transfer to Iberia. And that could be a really good deal for flights across the Atlantic.
I think a key takeaway here is that there's so many programs and there's so many rules and there's so many changes and there's so many different possible flights and the route maps that there still are a lot of good opportunities out there. I mean, you and I, we've been in the game for a little while now, but we're still coming across different routes that are really good. those surprising Fifth Freedom routes and like London to Austin. That's kind of a strange flight. That's a great redemption. So there's plenty of good stuff that's still out there.
Absolutely.
All right, now we're going to run through some quick links. Once again, you can check them out at abroaders.com/153. The first thing is Delta is offering a status match. So the skinny on this is it can be a really good way to get status with another alliance or another airline if you already have status. So there's 7 new airlines that if you have status with them, Delta is willing to give you a status match. And that would be All Nippon Airways, Asiana, British Airways, Copa, Japan Airlines, Lufthansa. I may be missing one, Air Canada as well. So a few that stick out to me that our listeners may be able to benefit from would be British Airways, Lufthansa, and Air Canada. And that's nice because one of those is One World and 2 of them are Star Alliance. So that's a way to get SkyTeam status more or less if you leverage your existing status. We'll have a link in the show notes that will give you the instructions as to how to apply and get approved for status with Delta.
Yeah, really nice to see them sort of expanding that. I don't necessarily expect this to last super long. These kinds of things tend to be sort of strategic attempts to grab a bunch of elite people towards the end of the year and potentially get them to spend their money with Delta in future years. So definitely worthwhile if you already have status, a nice freebie. The one caveat here, I guess, is just remember, generally programs will only let you do this one time per lifetime. So if you use a status match now, you want to make sure that you use it if you're planning on flying a lot of Delta in 2017, because you may not be able to match from another frequent flyer program if you've already used it one time. Next up is another news item from Delta as well. And this is actually for SPG Platinum members. And now that SPG and Marriott are integrating, so this also applies to Marriott Platinums. But basically, Delta is now allowing upgrades to Delta Comfort and a first checked bag for free for Starwood SPG, the top level elite people. And so that's definitely a nice perk. And I think that the big difference here that before they were allowing upgrades to business class for top tier SPG. So it's not a huge change from what was already happening. But because SPG elites are at the very bottom, right? Obviously, Delta's not going to upgrade hotel elites before their own frequent flyers. So they were sort of at the bottom of the chart, which means that they probably, in almost all cases, unless the flights were just completely empty, weren't getting those upgrades. So making the economy plus, the comfort plus seats available means that the Starwood and Marriott elites are probably actually going to see some benefit from this. So that's pretty nice. And then also keep in mind this crossover rewards relationship does work in reverse to a certain extent as well. So if you're top tier with Skymiles, if you're a diamond or a platinum, you're going to get some SPG benefits like late checkout and upgrades to better rooms. So nice to have those. And you can link up on the Delta or SPG website to sign up for crossover rewards and be able to get eligibility for those benefits.
It's good stuff. Next thing we've got is a deal between Uber and Android Pay. So for those people that have Android Pay, in December, you can get, essentially how this works is $37.50 off of Uber rides. The way the promo works is you can get 50% off your next 5 rides if you set up Android Pay and you use Android Pay to pay for the Uber. There's a promo code Android50. So the deal that expires on New Year's Eve 2016 as your next 5 rides, you get 50% off up to $15 per ride. So that's how over $70 you get off. So that's a pretty cool deal. So if you got Android Pay and you set that up in Uber, toss in the promo code, you get 50% off your next 5 rides up to $15 off per ride. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's nice to see Uber spending some money. I can report back that the ride home from the airport thing worked out really nicely in Houston. And I was, in fact, credited for that. And that's still live as well. So there's select airports that you get a free ride from the airport to wherever you're going, up to, I think, $60 or $65. Good to see Uber is in reinvesting some of the huge amount of venture capital that they've collected and given back to users.
Yeah, man. Uber is not hurting for cash. I know that they have some like issues, and I don't exactly know how profitable they are. They've got a lot of legal stuff, but if you like head over to AngelList and look at the amount of money they've raised and what the company's valued at, it's billions upon billions of dollars. So yeah, happy to see that they're giving back just a little bit.
All right. So next up, we've got a $10 credit from Google Fi that is going towards Google's Play service. So I really wanted to just talk about Google Fi for a second. This credit is definitely a bonus if you already have Google Fi. It looks like you're getting $10 towards essentially Google's version of the iTunes store to get some free music. But I read a review recently about the Google Fi service. And so, AJ, you and I, we've had a pretty good experience with T-Mobile, I think, overall while traveling. I don't know how it is over on the other side of Grand Ledge there, but my T-Mobile is basically non-existent in my own house. So it seems to be some pros and cons with T-Mobile's coverage. And it looks like Google Fi is really trying to shake up the pricing for data globally.
Yeah, T-Mobile's it's okay where I am right now, but yeah, like you said, I mean, Eric's is a 10 minute drive away from me, and I can vouch for that as well. When I'm over at your place, I've got no service as well. So this is definitely something to experiment with, and I appreciate what it looks like that they're going to have relatively no nonsense overseas data, which is, I mean, the traditional carriers, the way they do it, you get mugged when you want to use data abroad. It's just a kind of a cheap shot by them to take advantage of people that maybe don't know how to get a SIM card or work around. So that's definitely going to change. And I think this is going to put pressure on the other carriers to play ball and at least become reasonable with their folks when they're traveling. Because, I mean, I can only imagine how many people Verizon lost to T-Mobile that are kind of like you and I. It's not a huge group of people, but I know a lot of people that said, enough with this bullshit. We're going to go with T-Mobile. It seems to be more fair, and it's worked out pretty well for us.
Yeah. And I think, so I wouldn't be surprised if a major reason that this summer we get a text message out of the blue from T-Mobile saying, hey, by the way, we decided to give you full speed LTE instead of the 2G that you normally get outside of the country. And that's valid in all of Europe for the whole summer. We were like, wow, that's awesome. And it was so much better than the original version of service. And then just luckily, we happened to be in Colombia when they did that same type of deal in South America. And so I've been sort of spoiled here with really fast versions of the international data that wasn't what the T-Mobile service used to be like. And I got to say, like, I hope that they did that with the intention of that being the offering, because I'm headed to Google Fi immediately if I have to go abroad again and they're back to the regular 2G super slow service.
Yeah, man, I'm with you there. Speaking of the next thing, as far as travel goes, we got an Airbnb promotion. This looks really nice. So 20% off Airbnb gift cards. So there's a website that is giftcardmall.com, and you can buy gift cards for Airbnb at a 20% discount. This is something that we're going to take advantage of. I don't know why we wouldn't. A couple things to note here is that the max amount you can do is $500. However, they let you adjust the quantity. And I mean, if you and I are going to set up shop in Austin and you, George, and I are going to split a place, it's going to be pretty expensive. So we could potentially save, somewhere around $500 or $600 based on what the pricing is going to look like. So that's huge.
Yeah, I think, this is probably the type of thing that may not last until the declared expiration date of the promo. So if you're interested in this, I would move quickly, because it just seems like this is the type of promotion where they maybe underestimate how much exposure it's going to get. And when it gets picked up by big blogs like the Points Guy and 1 Mile at a Time, and of course, all the very numerous Abroaders listeners, this guy could be over soon. So jump on it quick if you want to stash some Airbnb credit. Okay, so next up, we've got a promotion for IHG. This is their first quarter Accelerate promotion. And I just want to mention this because I think it's definitely worth taking a look. IHG, I have to say, is sort of one of my favorite hotel programs, just because they tend to have really creative bonuses and they're pretty good at getting folks engaged. And so this is one where I can't really tell you the terms of the deal, because you have to sign into your account, and based on your history with them, they sort of create a special challenge for you. And so my challenge totals 36,200 points. And there's like 7 different metrics that I have to hit. And for each one, you get, certain additional sets of points. But, after reviewing this and seeing what some other people posted about it, it looks like in a lot of cases, you can get enough for at least 1 or 2 really high quality nights, like, enough points to stay at like the Intercontinental Hong Kong or something like that, or get, 5 or 6 really cheap hotel nights at their lowest category properties. And I think, looking at mine, I'd probably have to make like 3 separate stays and, stay like a total of like 6 or 7 nights to get the full benefit. But if you happen to be in a spot where IHG properties, which includes some sort of discount properties like Holiday Inn and stuff like that, if you live in a place where those aren't super expensive, it could definitely be worth jumping through some hoops and using IHG for upcoming hotel needs, because you can definitely net some points. So I would highly recommend checking this out. And in the show notes, we'll have the link where you can see what your promo is specifically for your account.
That's good stuff, man. Final thing here we've got on the quick hitters. This is interesting. This is going to be the first flight from Australia to Europe. This is going to be the longest flight in the world. It's Qantas. It's going to be on a 787, and it looks like it's going to be from Perth to London Heathrow. This is over 9,000 miles, man. This is a long ass flight. So this is going to be over 17 hours for people that would have interest in this route. The good thing is it looks like they're going to have a lot of premium seating. It looks like over 40 business class seats and close to 30 premium economy seats, leaving 166 economy seats. But man, I've got mixed emotions on this. It's so cool that you can get from point A to point B without stopping. However, if you're in economy, I know you're a big fan of, if let's say you've got 12 hours of flying time, you'd prefer, if you're in economy, to do a 6-hour flight, stop, take an hour off, and then hop back on another plane and do another 6 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is also like, if you're in business class, what better than to make your redemption worth 17 hours of getting pampered?
I agree. So I'd take a 30-hour flight if it was offered in business class. I mean, it's just you're in a nice lazy boy getting fed food and drinks, watching movies, doing work, whatever. Game changing if you're in business versus economy. But this is pretty impressive. And I remember before the 787 was released, hearing all the hype about it. They were making the plane with new material. It was going to be lighter. It was going to be able to travel further. It was going to be a better flying experience. And I'm pissed off, man. I've still yet to fly on a 787. I have not done it yet.
I don't think we've talked about this. I got my first 787 flight from Rio de Janeiro to Houston, and nice aircraft, first of all, but by a long shot, I could tell the difference in the humidity in the cabin. The air system is so much better. So I will definitely, if I'm going to be in economy anyways, I will definitely try and book towards 787s in the future. As far as this route goes, I think the interesting thing is that this plane was really designed for long haul flights in terms of fuel efficiency. It's also because it's relatively new compared to the overall, aircraft that most of the airlines have. On average, lots of these planes that are flying today are 10 years old or 15 years old. So the fact that the 787s are a new release makes them, sort of naturally quieter and more fuel efficient as well. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with these types of routes, because historically it's really hard to make money on flights that are over 12 hours. It's very, very hard to burn all that fuel and maintain enough passengers, especially with a flight like this, where most of the revenue that supports the flight is going to have to come from business and premium economy travelers rather than the poor folks spending 17 hours.
Yeah, man, don't quote me on this. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty confident that the reason that the 787 has such good range is because it's lighter. And I think it's lighter because I want to say it's the first big commercial airplane to be made with composite as opposed to aluminum.
Interesting.
Which is supposedly much stronger and lighter. It's supposedly way, way better. But that's pretty interesting.
It'd be interesting to see if this kind of stuff, in our lifetime ends up getting replaced with Hyperloop or with, other forms of transportation. I feel like we're sort of at the max right now where you're not going to have 17-hour flights, even if planes can fly way further. First of all, 9,000 miles is almost halfway around the world. So we've almost reached being able to fly as far as you can even fly on Earth without doubling back. And, you would think relatively soon planes are going to start going faster, or we're going to get in a pneumatic tube and just get sent around. So it'll be interesting to see how long we're doing these long haul flights.
I find that
decade or what.
I find that stuff so interesting because it's not a matter of the technology. It's a matter of the application of the technology in a business model that works. Because shit, man, back in it was in the 70s, we had the Concorde where you're heading from New York to London or Paris from the 3.5 hours. But there's just some serious issues from a business perspective with the plane. The Hyperloop stuff, I mean, you hear Elon Musk talk about it. A lot of people are talking about how much faster and better it is. There is engineers that were talking about this stuff back in the 60s, but it just takes a lot. It just takes so much to implement this technology and have a business with the money and the infrastructure to take a risk and to make that big investment. But yeah, man, it is interesting. This is, like you said, almost maxing it out, halfway around the world. You can't fly any further without doubling back. So I guess time will tell, man. What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive, indeed. Okay, so I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Again, show notes at abroaders.com/153. I do have 2 corrections from last week. First of all, for you early birds that download right away when the show comes out, you may have noticed that part of my conversation with my interview guest was just sort of us shooting the shit after the interview. Just made a mistake and forgot to tell our editing team that wasn't part of it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. We did clear that out, but sort of interesting just in terms of hustling some business development.
And also, Fabio, if you're listening, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, we got a few emails. It's I don't know if you pitching him on a guest post was supposed to be in the interview, but anyways, hey, you got to hustle a little bit. And so also messed up the track last week for the Jam. I did actually get the name of the track right, but the album was Born in Babylon, which was not from their 2011 release, Revolution. But both CDs are pretty awesome, so hope you guys still check those guys out. Anything else, AJ?
Man, that is all. Shit, we're getting so close to Christmas. We've got one more episode before Christmas, so I guess I can hold off on wishing people happy holidays. But for those folks up north in the United States or in other parts of the world that are in a cold climate, I'm with you. We're thinking about you. We know winter can definitely suck, so hang in there.
Stay warm and start planning that February or January award trip to someplace nice and warm.
That is more like it.
I guess I will say we're probably not going to have too much on the news and updates front in the next couple episodes because our amazing editing team is going to be taking off some much deserved time for the holidays. So we will definitely be getting into some strategy and some more sort of core content type stuff for at least the next 2 weeks. And so if you're not on our email list already, we will send out a little digest of anything that's important to stay afloat and know what's going on. So we won't have too much in terms of frequent or up-to-date information on new breaking news over Christmas, but sign up for the email list and we will send out a little report on that as well. All right.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next week.
Hey, brothers, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Erik